Hi there folks, Steve here. Wow, yes, what a wonderful smell in the air, what a wonderful day. If there was something that I would have to want to remind myself of every few seconds, it would be perception. Perception is everything. Perception is everything. I didn't really get this concept until I observed perception. Just the actual awareness of perception itself, just the word perception. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one, and this is really where religion falls over its own shoelaces. Because the biggest trap for anybody really, but for anybody who's spiritual or going down that path, which we all are, just some of us consciously and some of us subconsciously. But say you're going down that spiritual path, one of the biggest dangers for you and for others really, one of the biggest dangers of the spiritual path is trying to describe the spiritual experience to others. Now I gave up on wanting to explain the spiritual experience, but it's so much fun trying to explain the spiritual experience that, you know, I can almost trick myself with the idea. And so I do. I continue to try and explain. So my explanation really is perceive. It's all about awareness. You know, I found this out one day when on a photo shoot, a video shoot, and I was capturing the sound, and I was like trying to be the silent observer for a very long duration of time, on heightened awareness, listening to this through the headphones, capturing this audio. And I just suddenly kind of felt different after a few hours of being in this state of heightened awareness. Like I was resonating different. And it wasn't because I was like thinking about any spiritual thoughts or speaking any mantras. It was just simply the fact that I was focusing my attention so concentratedly and so consistently, without frequent breaking, that something had happened within me. Something had unblocked, maybe. And it felt good, and I think we've all experienced this feeling, you know, the feeling of enlightenment is at the end of the day just a good feeling, probably. You know, you've achieved something good and you feel great, you know. That is a pretty enlightening kind of feeling. Now then, I applied the same idea of concentrating and put my perception on the world, wholly on the world. You know, you'd often get these times where, and you'll notice it on this video, you'll notice you'll be listening to my voice, and then suddenly you've realised that you wasn't listening anymore. You was thinking. And that's what happens, the thoughts sneak in. At first the thoughts are just decoding, and then something, one of the words that I may say, may trigger something in your mind. And your mind begins to then focus, you begin to focus your attention on your thought. And that thought devours your attention. Obviously you've still got your perception, but you can't refocus because you've forgotten that you are the perception and not the thought. All this time while the thought's going on, like the sound on the inside, all of this time you're not there, you're not present, see. You're focusing on thought, and thought that way, it gives you the impression that you are your thoughts. Just like, if you touch something, you feel like you are your hands or you are your feet. But then, when you sit down and forget your feet, you don't relate to yourself as your feet anymore. So perception, always coming back to perception. Just the word perception. Perception. It just means that I'm in a state where I'm choosing where to put my attention. It's very difficult when watching a monitor screen, actually, because your attention is focused on on this small area of screen, and your eyes are captivated in that small area. So, therefore, you haven't got the ability to look around. You're at the mercy of where I move this camera, really. And the same as any other film, obviously, we know that, but then at the point where you decide how you want to listen and how you want to look, and you decide every few seconds, perceive. I am the perceiver, I am not the thought, I am not my senses, I am the one who knows those parts. That sounds pretty good, huh? All that religious stuff sounds like either bullshit or poetry. And it's all good, but I do notice some massive anomalies in there that can lead people massively astray. We find ourselves far too much either in our minds, thinking that we're in some higher plane, because we identify the fantasies, the imaginations with something that's real divine visions and stuff, where the imagination is there like a cinema screen to display abstract images that only the soul or the spirit or the heart can decode. Probably. I've just invented that, so. But yeah, it seems like that from a lot of the things I've read. The perception is like an eye in itself. The eye. The one who sees thought, the one who witnesses the one watching that. The cameraman, the director, the one who changes the scene, the one who decides where the scene's going. Not the one who necessarily decides the monologue or the dialogue, or not necessarily even decides on the acts or the performance or anything. But he can influence the camera. He can make things look smaller and bigger. Perception can do a lot to actually change the world around, and that's the point. That's why I say perception is so important. Sometimes it's much better to perceive and not to think too much about an answer, and to remain by the perception, because the answer comes and knocks on your door and says, hey, listen to this, is a really important answer. That's how the mind works. It doesn't need all of your attention all the time to think. The thought process happens on its own. Which means that the true observer, the I, has the freedom to wander around in presence, right now, to change the focus, to change what it perceives. So just to know, you don't need any other practices, no mantras, no singing, no breathing techniques, no deities, no superhumans, naturals or anything. In my honest own opinion, there is one thing that I can safely say has woken me up, and that is to perceive, to observe, to keep observing, to observe. A lot. When you look at the thoughts that come into your mind, horsefly is terrible. When you perceive the thoughts that come into your mind, are they your excuse me? Are they your thoughts, Or have you just focused on them while your mind grows that tree of knowledge in your absence? You think that you're the thinker. So you come back to the tree and think that you've grown the tree, whereas the tree has grown as an automatic natural process. You get what I'm saying? It's like having a computer and downloading something, say, and sitting there waiting 50%, 70%, 90%, 99%, and then sitting there waiting to press OK. Like the computer can't wait for you, almost. Like, surely you can download a file, when it's finished its 100%, it can wait days for you. It can sit there, same as a printer, it can print out the piece of paper and it can sit there in the printing tray for days after days. And it's the same with your mind, the same with your own mind. That a lot of the work it's doing automatically, and then sending you the most important things, activities and stuff, just like on a computer, where you get your SMSs and you get your little chat window opening, or your alert boxes telling you that something's going wrong. These things happen automatically in the mind, so attention doesn't need to focus on the mind and on thoughts for any at all. Only when making mathematical equations and stuff like that. And reason, when you're reasoning things through. But when you're just perceiving, then a lot more comes out of the spirit, out of the gut, out of the stomach, out of your spontaneous reaction. The way you observe the world defines more on how you act in the world than anything else. If you observe, if you're walking down the street and you observe that somebody's upset, you could think that they're angry and they're going to be nasty to you, or you could think that they're sad and need some help, or maybe they're just thinking about something, So if you perceive that badly, and you get overwhelmed with that perception that you've given it, then your guts, your spirit, your prime moving force will guide you in that direction. But if you then perceive that person as maybe somebody who needs help and assistance in that moment, and they only look angry because they're in distress, then obviously your spirit, your soul, your gut will lead you in that direction. You've noticed that if your stomach isn't in it, then it's not going to happen. You'll often I do, I'm used to make the occasional excuse by saying I was ill, but it wouldn't take long before I did actually feel ill. You've noticed that yourself. So but the reason I didn't want to go in the first place was because my stomach just couldn't stomach it. The reason I have problems when I'm talking about gut and spirit and stomach is because, the word spirit is a little bit ambiguously used. Spirit is sometimes mind. In some people think it means the thoughts. Some people think it means the higher self, and some people think it means the soul. There's a lot of differences. But when I say spirit, I always relate to the stomach, the guts, that gut feeling. It's not a higher divine thing for me, although everything is connected to the higher and lower divine. So it's not that. But you get what I'm saying. When you've got the guts to do something, that's like when you've got the spirit to do something, in my opinion. If you've got the spirit to want to do something, to carry out your dream, if that's what you feel when your stomach's going now, if you imagine your dream's a stupid word as well, but if you imagine the thing that you desire to do, the thing that you feel that is maybe your life's mission. If you concentrate on that for a second and feel what it feels like in your stomach, it doesn't make you feel sick, it makes you feel excited. And that's what I talk about spirit. I don't really need like voices in my head. I've got enough of those. So I'm really looking to focus my attention more on, on my heart and on my stomach, and keep it in the centre. To be satisfied and to come back to the centre, to a state of heightened awareness and perceive through all of the senses. To not take it as if the feelings that come into the heart are sadness, or they're not necessarily your feelings. Sometimes we're just picking up on things from our environment, and we should just observe those for a while before we go mad. Yeah, so that's why I say perception. Forget the rest of this video really, and just perception. Every time you find yourself thinking for an answer, just think, just perceive. Even if it's perceive the thought, but know that you're the one that's chosen to perceive the thought. Don't lead yourself into thinking that you're the thought itself. But yeah, me giving you all this bad advice and that. But yeah, perception, awareness, or focus. Not even awakening. Awakening's quite sort of overrated, because it's awaken now and then back to sleep, wake, sleep, wake. This process of sleep and awake happens millions of times in a second probably. So it's more a case of capturing that bit between the sleep and the awake, sort of as you were waking up, in order to say, right, okay, I'm going to make something of this situation. That's the idea of it. That's the idea of being awake, and not sort of just walking around talking to a camera half in a dream. Because talking is also a kind of a dream state. And so every now and again, just to stop, every couple of seconds in fact, and say, think, perceive, innit? And what a wonderful, wonderful world that we can perceive. Alright then, so I'm going to leave you with that, and have a good time. And don't forget to look at all the little flowers, the littlest flowers, and appreciate everything. Nothing is background. When we go into a fashion shop, most of the things that we don't really want are like scenery in there. We're looking for that one piece of clothing item that appeals to us. But we shouldn't really do that in nature and with living things. We shouldn't select the things that that appeal to us in that way. We should accept and invite the mystery and perceive it. Alright then, folks, friends, have a good time. See you later.